Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. As we turn the corner and start thinking about harvest of winter crops, a lot of producers already have summer crops on their mind, along with all this rain we've received too. Here's our Extension Cropping System Specialist, Josh Lofton.
We were almost getting into some dire times, and I talked a couple weeks ago that the next 8 to 10 days were very critical on our canola crop, very critical on our wheat crop. And the fortunate thing is we've been blessed with not one shower, but a couple of showers, and they've been nice kind of soaking in rainfall. So we're looking really good as far as the winter crops go, because of the moisture kind of came through. And you can see those crops have kind of turned the corner, and they've really picked up, and they really look a lot better than they did, 10 to 14 days ago.
And now we'll get some of those nice sunny days.
We can only hope.
In terms of summer crops now, as people are kind of starting to gear up to start planting, what kind of questions are you getting?
Well, the first one is, a lot of folks are, can I start planting? Well, this is a great day to be talking about this. In our coats, it's 40 degrees outside, and it's just the really big thing is the calendar can't dictate when we plant. We have to let Mother Nature and the soil dictate when we plant. We got a lot of good moisture. We got a tremendous amount of soil moisture throughout the state, and that's going to stick with us for a good long time, hopefully. Hopefully we don't get 90-degree days with 40-mile-an-hour winds, and we should be able to stock a lot of this moisture up to help us plant. The big thing is we have to wait for it to warm up. Those soil temperatures need to warm. We need to have consistently warm soil temperatures. Planting and then going through some conditions like this isn't going to terminate the crop. We aren't going to see it fail, but it definitely isn't going to help it get off and get going in the right direction. So wait for it to warm up a little bit. We have until about the first week of May before we really, especially in the central part of the state, like to see us kind of hold off on planting. So we have a little over a month before we have to kind of delay planting a little bit. So we have time. Let Mother Nature kind of work herself out here in the next couple of days, and hopefully by next week or the week following we can really get a lot of crop in the ground.
And then some tips on milo and soybeans specifically. What kind of guidance do you have?
Yeah, the milo, we like to see it get out of the ground and get up and going really quickly, and that really is a stressing of these conditions are not the kind of conditions we like to see it coming in. We don't want to see it sit there, germinate, and sit there this big for multiple weeks at a time. So let Mother Nature kind of get a little warmer. Once again, with milo especially, we have a lot of time and a lot of flexibility. When we move to soybeans, once again, we still like it to get up and out of the ground really quickly. However, west of 35, we want to make sure that we take as much advantage of the spring conditions as we possibly can before we get into the summer. Those folks east of 35 and back towards the Arkansas and Kansas state line, we have a little flexibility. However, they are a little warmer than we are, so they might have a lot better situation. But with both of them, we still need to remember to do all the things right now, because that's going to help as we get down the line. So make sure you got your fertilizer down, make sure you got pre-plant herbicide down, make sure you're planting into good conditions. I always recommend growers, they can go to a hardware store or garden store, get a soil thermometer, stick it into their field 3 or 4 times throughout the whole field. Do that for a couple of days, and if that temperature is above the critical temperature for the crop, then we can start planting.
Great advice, Josh. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
March ended with rain, and that trend continued as we moved through the first week in April. This moisture has given our soils a real boost. On a map showing the 7-day change in soil moisture at 10 inches, there are a lot of dark green areas. These are places where the 10-inch fractional water index had good gains in soil moisture from March 29th to April 4th. Checking soil moisture from April 4th as the percent of plant available water from the surface to 16 inches, the dark green areas show lots of values close to 100%. Going from the surface down to 32 inches, we still have a lot of areas with excellent soil moisture. Folks are hoping we don't have a late freeze this year. We've been lucky so far that any freezes have stayed up in the far western panhandle. Kenton had 10 hours below freezing during the 7 days ending April 5th. Boise City had 8 hours. The rest of us have stayed above freezing. As we continue to move through April, the freeze risk goes down. The middle of the yellow band are areas where the average date of the last freeze is April 10th. Here's Gary with a look at our recent rain's impact on Oklahoma's drought situation.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, last week I promised you lots of big changes on the drought monitor, and boy did we get them. And not only that, I can promise you more changes for next week from the recent rains and snows we got over the last few days. Let's take a look at the latest drought monitor map and see where those changes have occurred. Well, obviously most of those are to the northwest half of the state, a little bit in south central Oklahoma and up in northeastern Oklahoma. We did see a large reduction in the moderate drought across central up through the northwestern part of the state. We also got rid of that blob of extreme, that's the D3 drought up in the Panhandle, and Beaver County is even down to abnormally dry. So hopefully after the rains and snows they got this past week, we might get them completely out of drought. We still have that drought continuing off in southeastern Oklahoma though, and let's take a look at the latest 30-day rainfall map. Well, you can see this long demarcation line of 3 to 6 inch rainfall amounts going from southwest Oklahoma up through northeast Oklahoma, and to the southeast of there we have areas that received less than 2 inches of rainfall. So obviously drought is still maybe not going strong, but it's still a potential problem in that area. And if we look at the percentage of normal rainfall map for the last 30 days, we see that part of that area is from 60 to less than 40% of normal. And then we see across the northwestern half or so of the state that dark blue and green area that signals from 120 to even up to 200% of normal rainfall over the last 30 days. So that's your drought killer right there. So hopefully as we come into the spring season, which is the wettest time of the year, especially for eastern Oklahoma, we can eradicate that drought across the eastern part of the state now. Northwestern's looking good. We could use some more at any time, however, to keep that drought at bay. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
It's a big year for research at Oklahoma State University, and Brian, we're here at the Magrude Plot. Let's talk about kind of the history about this plot.
Absolutely. So 125 years ago, A.C. Magruder put the first wheat in the Magrude Plot, and what he looked at was a 2-acre patch where he just put the crop. Nothing else, no fertilizer, no nothing, a check plot over 125 years ago. And over that time, the plots have changed. After several years, we moved to an addition of manure. So we had the check, which was unfertilized, to the manure. And then as the Industrial Revolution kicked in and we had commercial fertilizers, we started adding commercial fertilizer into that to have what it is today. One of the interesting tidbits about the Magrude Plots is it actually moved in 1947. Its original spot was underneath Stout Hall. And so to expand the campus, they needed to move the plots, and the researchers at that time had the forethought to move it. It was actually several more treatments under that original location, but they picked out those that came here, which was the manure plots, which gets beef feedlot every 4 years, enough to supply 240 pounds of nitrogen over those 4 years. The unfertilized check, which is maintained unfertilized since that first day AC broke out the ground and planted that first wheat. Then we have the phosphorus plot, which has only received phosphorus, the NP plot, which gets nitrogen, phosphorus, NPK plot, which gets nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And then the last plot, which would be the ideal plot, you might say, is the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, plus lime when the plots fall below a certain threshold, which it has done twice since establishment.
But really the best way to see it, I mean, we can stand here and you can kind of see, you know, bands across the field here, but the best way to see it is from about 100 feet up.
Without question, you got to go up high.
So as we're looking at that, what are we looking at across the stripes
So
there?
as you look at, I'm backing it up so we can get a better view. Oops, the wind is getting us. So down at the bottom, you've got the lower stripe down here is the manure plots.
Right.
Then you have the check. Then you have the phosphorus. That's NP, NPK, NPK lime in your bands right there. And that duplicates what we can see across the field.
So as we're looking at that, there's some that are brighter than others. Will that impact the yield?
Without a doubt. If you look at it this year and what I'm expecting based upon yield and everything, the manure in every plot that gets nitrogen on this video you can see is so much greener.
Right.
I'd expect, based upon tiller counts and everything, we're going to be in the 40 to 50 bushel yield range again this year, while the check, I would assume, is probably going to fall under 20 bushel.
Really? Okay.
And the phosphorus only, you can see, has a little bit more green, so we're probably going to be 3 or 4 bushel above the check, but it's going to be awfully close.
Right. There's an event coming up here on the Magrude Plots, or actually on the agronomy farm, about the Magrude Plots soon.
So May 19th, we're going to have a celebration, 125th harvest anniversary celebration. We're going to have it a full field day though. We're going to include other state specialists, Dr. Manicherry, Dr. Lofton, Dr. Long, talking about the new herbicides, herbicide resistance, and sprayer technologies. We'll have Dr. Taylor talking about the BAE, plant soil science interaction over the years, Dr. Roccatelli on the forages, and then we're going to end up at the last third of the morning, we're going to end up on the Magrude Plots with the history of and the impacts of the Magrude Plots, and ending with a lunch.
Okay, thank you much, Brian. And for more information on that, you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Kim Anderson is here now. And Kim, 2017 wheat harvest is underway. Let's kind of look at how world production is shaping up.
Well, if you look at Syria, the reports there that probably 100 or million metric tons more than last year. Of course, their wheat production's been down the last few years because of the war. They're still going to be below the area, say if you go back 5 years ago where they were exporting. But Syria's higher. India may harvest a record crop. They've had problems the last few years. And India also has been exporting. They were unable to export wheat the last 2 years. With this record crop, they may enter the export market, but they'll probably just build supplies. But the world market is starting off with a bang on production, and you know, we'd kind of like that production to be a little lower than that, but the important production will be when we get into the former Soviet Union countries, European Union, and those harvests that start in late July, August, and September.
How is U.S. production then shaping up if we want to get the full picture?
Well, U.S. production's expected to be less than last year's 2.3 billion bushels. Some estimates around 1.9 billion bushels, which is a start at reducing these massive stocks. Hard red winter wheat production last year was 1 billion 80 million bushels. It may be as low as 750 million this year with reduced planted acres. And on our ending stocks from that production, 1.2 billion bushels down to, 1.2 billion bushels down to maybe 850, which would help us price-wise some.
Let's get some perspective on wheat that's in storage and kind of how that's impacting prices still.
Yeah, that's a big concern to the market, is the wheat still in the bunkers. We had that stocks report came out March 1. Oklahoma had last year 101 million bushels in storage. This year we had 108.5. That's a 7.5 million bushel increase. Texas had 80.7 million bushels compared to about 64 last year, a 17 million bushel increase. Kansas, though, had 367.6 million bushels in storage compared to 260 last year. It's a 107 million bushel increase. So that's got to weigh on the market. However, you know, our exports are about double of what they were last year, and our exports that hadn't been shipped, we've got to ship another 75 or 80 million bushels. I think that's going to move some of it out, but we will still have it in bunkers, and that will still weigh heavy on price.
Prices have kind of stabilized, wheat prices. What are your expectations moving forward?
Well, you know, we were talking about $4.25 at harvest. I lowered that to $3.75 to $4, probably closer to that $4. Right now, you can forward contract for $3.55. Our price is going to depend on, do we have test weight and do we have protein? That's what we're going to have to wait and see. Right now, I'm semi-optimistic.
And do you think producers then should forward contract or hedge for harvest?
Well, they've got about, say a 40-cent price risk. If you can forward contract for $3.55, you've got the loan at $3.15, so you've got that price risk. I'd say if they can afford that risk, I wouldn't forward contract any. Right now, I think there's more opportunity for higher prices than there is for lower prices.
Okay, Kim Anderson, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Here we are at the end of the spring calving season for many ranches across Oklahoma and the southern plains. That means that these cows are in early stages of lactation, when they're giving the most milk that they'll give at any time throughout the production year. That also means to me that it's a good time to evaluate cows for the soundness of their udders. We've done research here at Oklahoma State University and have found that beef cows that have an unsound udder, perhaps one with one dry or two dry quarters, that they are raising calves that wean at 50 to 60 pounds less than the counterparts that have a totally sound udder. And that means a lot of dollars lost in terms of sale weight of those calves at weaning time. So I think it's very important that we look through these cows and do some selection at culling time and at heifer replacement time to try to improve the udder soundness in our herds. Let's look at some examples of a unsound teat shape, and that's one of the criteria that we would look at. If we have those very large funnel-shaped teats on a particular cow, then chances are that's a situation where there might be some mastitis that has developed in that particular quarter, and eventually it will become dry or non-functional. Compare that with a sounder, smaller teat that is one that baby calf, when it's first born, can get his mouth around and get that colostrum very early in life, which we know is so very, very important. Another aspect of udder soundness is the suspensory ligament. That's the ligament that holds the udder up close to the abdomen of that cow. As some cows get older, that will weaken and allow that udder to sink down close to the ground, again making it difficult for the baby calf, when it first gets up and tries to nurse, to find that udder that might be, or that teat that's hanging way too close to the ground. These are two traits that I would really watch for very, very closely. Research throughout the years has indicated that those things do have a genetic component. Some of the early research with Brahma breeds and other breeds have indicated that it might be 25% heritable. More recent data at Kansas State University just a couple of years ago, where they looked at large numbers of data from the Hereford breed, found that it was even more highly heritable at something in the neighborhood of about 30 to 32%. So we can make progress in our herds by culling out those cows that have those unsound udders and not saving daughters out of cows that we know had that either that very large funnel-shaped teat or the loose, pendulous, weakened suspensory ligament that allowed that udder to get close to the ground. I think if you'll take the time to go through the cows, mark down those with that bad udder, plan to cull them next fall, and then make a note that probably we don't want to save daughters out of that cow. Over time, we can improve the udder soundness of our entire herd and improve weaning weights and our bottom line. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
A bit of welcome news this week for cattle producers affected by devastating wildfires in parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. The USDA authorized emergency grazing on Conservation Reserve Program acres. For information on CRP grazing, the best place to start is your local Farm Service Agency office.
This morning we're going to take a bit of a different trek, and Daryl, we're going to talk hamburger. How important is hamburger market to the overall beef industry?
It's extremely important. We estimate in 2016 that hamburger production in the U.S. amounted to about 25 pounds per person. That's about 45% of total beef consumption. So almost half of beef consumption in the U.S. is in the form of ground beef.
How is ground beef produced? Is it just they put the whole cow in there and it comes out?
Well, it starts with our fed steer and heifer slaughter. So we slaughtered last year about 24.2 million steers and heifers. Virtually all of those are fed in feedlots. And each one of those carcasses produces from 140 to 150 pounds of trimmings that are about 64-65% lean. And most ground beef is marketed anywhere from 70% to as high as 90 or 95% lean. So that means we have to add additional lean to that product. So for that 144 pounds per carcass of fed trimmings, we're going to add about 190 pounds. So on a per carcass basis, in terms of fed steer and heifer slaughter, we're going to produce about 335 pounds of ground beef.
Where does all that lean meat come from?
Well, our first source for that is the cull cows and bulls that we slaughter in this country. And then, we'll add to that other sources as needed. We don't produce enough of that lean meat from our cull cows and bulls, so we have to get some additional lean. The principal source primarily is import. Australia, New Zealand, a good chunk of what we get from Canada, and so on is meat to supplement that supply of lean trimmings.
So what if we didn't import all of that, the lean beef?
One possibility is that we simply wouldn't be able to turn all of those fed trimmings into ground beef. You have to have additional lean. The other possibility would be to, grind other parts of the carcass that are lean, chucks and rounds. But that's sort of going backwards in value. That's taking products that have a higher value and grinding them back down to hamburger value. Or thirdly, we could take a portion of our steers and heifers, not feed them in the feedlots, and run them as extensive range beef and basically sell them at cull cow prices to provide that additional lean. In every case, no matter which of those happens or what combination of those happens, we would be losing value. So the imported beef actually allows us to extract more value out of the cattle we produce here in the U.S.
That's very interesting. Okay, thank you much, Daryl. Daryl Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Finally today, the 4-H enrichment program that really gives young people the opportunity to clear their minds. SUNUP's Curtis Hare takes us to Blaine County to explain.
Come on in. Okay, grab your mat.
This isn't the PE class you remember from your elementary days. Sure, there's stretching and a little bit of sweating, but this is definitely something for the 21st century. At Watonga Elementary, 4th and 5th grade students are trading in jump ropes and jogging for mats and meditation.
Okay, another deep breath in. And then out. Oh, they really enjoy it. Actually, I've heard different comments about, it's yoga day. They're excited when they get up in the morning and they're glad to come to school and do yoga.
Since 2015, County Extension Director Joy Rhodes has taught yoga in the county schools.
Okay. Relax your hands.
The guru of Blaine County integrated the mind, body, and soul method after learning about the 4-H Yoga for Kids program.
I had never done yoga before. I'd heard of it, but never really had an interest. I had done other things, and so when they offered it, I said, well, I'll just try it. I've seen a difference in myself when I do yoga. I'm more flexible, my feet don't hurt, my back doesn't hurt as bad.
For the kids, the benefits of yoga were a little surprising.
Good breath out.
It helps me concentrate on my schoolwork and school.
So it's relaxing.
Yeah.
It takes all the stress and pain.
The deep breathing and learning to block out external things, especially when it comes time for testing, because some kids have test anxiety, and so teaching them to deep breathe and let your troubles go and be able to concentrate on what you need to concentrate at the moment. Namaste.
Is it a lot better than running laps?
Yes.
Yes.
Joy will teach about 8 sessions for the year in Watonga. As the 4th grade class filters in the room and gets warmed up for their session, I decide I want to join in and relax my mind for a bit. Being a natural athlete and all, I figure I can take to this yoga thing like a duck to water.
Does it feel like it's like 105 degrees in here?
This is not easy. Luckily, 4-H'er Reese Coleman is here to help me along.
Like this?
Yeah.
How's my form?
It's good.
What's your most favorite thing about yoga?
That it helps me when like I do tests and it calms me down.
Do tests stress you out?
Sometimes, yeah.
Why?
Because when they're hard and I can't figure it out, then I kind of just breathe and then it helps me.
All right, 1 to 10, guys. How did I do? Good. Hold on. A solid 6. What do you think, Reese? What would you give me?
I'd give you a 7.
7. I'll take 7. I'll take 7.
And this is actually an exercise that you can continue on through adulthood, at all ages, depending on your, you can tailor it to your needs, especially as you age. It's not just for young kids.
While I'm leaving sweaty and sore, the 4th and 5th grade students at Watauga Elementary are headed back to class, refreshed and ready to take on the rest of the day. And Joy says she plans to keep yoga in her county for the foreseeable future. In Blaine County, I'm Curtis Hare.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online on our website and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone. And remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.